The sun was low in the sky, painting the dusty Earth outpost with soft orange light. Cole adjusted the solar panel on the side of the building and wiped the sweat from his forehead. It had been another long, quiet day in the desert plains, far from any city, far from any noise. He liked it this way. No distractions, just peace. But that peace was broken when he saw something move near the rocks. At first, he thought it was just an animal, maybe a wild desert lizard, but when he looked closer, his heart skipped a beat. There, collapsed on the ground, was a figure, not human, not from Earth. Cole rushed over, careful but fast. As he got closer, he could see the being was a woman, alien clearly. Her skin was pale blue with a soft, smooth texture. Her small elf-like ears were twitching slightly. She looked young and weak, like she had been running for a long time. Her clothes were torn, and one side of her body was covered in dried blood and bruises. Her eyes opened slowly as Cole knelt beside her. They were large, glowing faintly with a violet shade, and full of fear. "Please," she whispered in broken English. "Don't hurt. Need help." Cole looked around. No ships, no tracks, no signs of where she came from. Just her, lying in the dust, alone and barely conscious. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know what had happened to her, but she was injured and she needed help. "You're safe," Cole said quietly. "I won't hurt you." He carefully lifted her in his arms. She was light, almost too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. As he carried her toward the outpost, he noticed how she clung to him, her body trembling, her breath shallow. Inside, he laid her down gently on the small cot in his spare room. He grabbed his medical kit and began cleaning her wounds. She winced but didn't resist. She just kept looking at him with wide, uncertain eyes. "What's your name?" he asked as he bandaged her arm. She was silent for a moment. Then, in a soft voice, she answered, "Sarai." "That's a nice name," Cole said with a gentle smile. "I'm Cole." She nodded slowly but said nothing more. He offered her water and she drank like she hadn't seen a drop in days. Then he gave her a protein bar, which she sniffed carefully before nibbling on. Her movements were slow and cautious. As night fell, Cole stayed up, watching the door and the skies. Who was she? Why was she out there? And more importantly, was someone coming after her? Sarai slept fitfully, turning in her sleep and whispering strange words in a language Cole didn't understand. He could tell she had been through something terrible. The next morning, Cole cooked a simple meal, eggs and toast. Sarai looked at the food with curiosity but didn't touch it until he ate first. She slowly copied him, unsure but hungry. "You don't have to be scared," he told her, gently. "You're safe here, no one's going to hurt you." She looked at him, her eyes shimmering slightly. "Humans, not trust aliens," she said softly. Cole raised an eyebrow. "Maybe not all humans, but I don't judge people by what planet they're from." That made her pause. For the first time, she gave a small, weak smile. Later that day, Sarai tried to walk but stumbled. Cole helped her back to bed. As he adjusted her blanket, she held his hand for a moment. "Thank you," she whispered. "You. Kind." Cole didn't know what had happened to Sarai, but he could see that kindness was something she hadn't known in a long time. Out here, far from the eyes of the world, two strangers from different stars had met, and somehow that meeting had already begun to change them both. It had been 2 days since Cole had found Sarai lying in the dust. The woman was still weak, but there was something about her that made him want to help her even more. She wasn't just any alien. There was a story behind her, something that haunted her even when she tried to hide it. Cole kept asking her questions, hoping she would talk, but Sarai remained silent most of the time. Her eyes would wander, and she'd stare out the small window of the room as if expecting someone to come. At night, she would sometimes wake with a start, mumbling in her native language. One morning, as the sun rose and painted the sky in soft hues of orange, Cole found Sarai sitting on the edge of her cot. She was staring down at her hands, a faraway look in her eyes. He walked over to her, cautious not to startle her. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She looked up at him, her face filled with sorrow. "I don't belong here," she whispered. "I don't belong anywhere." Cole sat down beside her, unsure of what to say. She had been nothing but kind since he found her, but there was an obvious sadness that lingered in her eyes. "You can stay here as long as you need to," Cole said, his voice firm with reassurance. "You're not alone." Scifi didn't respond right away. Instead, she gazed down at her hands again, as if deep in thought. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but steady. "They rejected me," she said. "My people. They rejected me because I refused to marry a man I didn't love." Cole was surprised. He didn't expect her to open up so soon, but he was glad she did. "You didn't love him, huh?" "No," she said. "He was powerful, and the marriage was meant to unite two important families. I was just a tool, a way to solidify power. But I wanted to choose my own path." Cole frowned. It sounded like her world was nothing like his. "So they kicked you out?" Scifi nodded, her eyes filled with pain. "Yes. They told me I was a disgrace. I was too weak, too foolish. I was nothing but an inconvenience to their plans." Cole felt a lump form in his throat. He couldn't imagine being rejected for something so simple as love. "That's not right," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It doesn't matter now," she replied, her gaze shifting to the floor. "I left. I ran. And they hunted me." The words hit Cole like a blow to the chest. "They hunted you?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. "For not marrying someone you didn't even want to marry?" Scifi's expression grew darker, the weight of her past heavier on her shoulders. "Yes, I have enemies now. Those who want me back. Those who want me punished. I'm nothing to them anymore. Just a fugitive, running from a past that won't let me go." For a moment, the silence between them felt thick, like it might swallow them whole. Cole didn't know what to say. What could he say to make someone feel better when they had been abandoned by their own people? "Why didn't you go to someone else for help?" he asked softly. "Why come here?" Scifi turned her gaze to him, her violet eyes shining with something Cole couldn't quite understand. "Because you showed kindness when no one else would. You didn't ask questions, you didn't judge me. I didn't know where else to go." Cole could feel his heart beat faster. He didn't know what he was supposed to do with these feelings, this sense of responsibility. But he knew one thing. He couldn't turn her away now. Not after everything she had been through. "I'm glad you came here," Cole said, looking into her eyes. "You're safe here, you don't have to be afraid anymore." Scifi didn't say anything for a long time. She just sat there, her fingers twisting together nervously. Finally, she nodded slowly, as if she was accepting the comfort that Cole offered her. But deep down, she knew that her problems were far from over. The people who exiled her would never stop searching. They would never let her go. And no matter how kind Cole was to her, no matter how much safety he offered, she was a target. As the days passed, Cole did everything he could to help Scifi recover. He fixed the small outpost's solar panels, cooked meals for both of them, and did his best to keep her mind occupied with simple tasks. But the fear never truly left her. Scifi always watched the skies, always listened for the sound of approaching ships. And every night she'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the day when her past would finally catch up with her. It had been a week since Scifi had first arrived at Cole's small Earth outpost. The two of them had settled into a routine, and for a moment, it felt as if everything might be okay. But Scifi knew better. No matter how kind Cole was, the danger was still there, lurking in the background. One morning, as Cole was working on the communication system, a loud beeping from his monitor caught his attention. He stood up, surprised. The message was from the Earth Defense Network. "Cole," the voice on the screen crackled. "We've detected unusual energy readings in your sector. We need you to verify." Cole frowned. Unusual energy readings? What do you mean? Unknown signatures, the voice replied. Could be a ship or something else. Please respond as soon as possible. Cole's heart raced. Could it be them? Could Sarai's people have found her? He turned to look at Sarai, who was standing in the doorway of the room. Her eyes were wide, her face pale. Is it them? She asked, her voice trembling. Cole swallowed hard. He wasn't sure, but he couldn't risk it. I'll check the readings, he said, trying to stay calm. He tapped a few keys on the console and waited as the screen updated. The numbers flickered, and then a familiar set of coordinates appeared on the map. They're here, Cole said softly. They've found us. Sarai's expression hardened. She knew this was coming, but hearing it aloud still felt like a punch to the gut. She stepped back, almost as if she were trying to retreat into herself. Are you going to turn me in? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Cole shook his head quickly. No. You're not going back to them. I won't let that happen. But despite his words, doubt crept into his mind. Who was he to stand against her entire race? He was only one man, and they were a powerful species, with technology far beyond what humans had. He had no idea what they would do to get Sarai back. They'll come for you, won't they? Sarai asked, her eyes searching his. They'll try, Cole said, his voice steady, but they'll have to go through me first. The tension in the air was thick, and Sarai knew that their peaceful life was over. She could no longer hide. The past she had tried to escape had finally caught up with her. The arrival of the search team. It wasn't long before Cole saw movement on the horizon, a ship, small but fast, darting through the sky. It was low, just above the desert, and it seemed to be heading straight for the outpost. Cole's heart pounded as he rushed to the door. He didn't know how long he had. He turned to Sarai, who was standing near the window, her face shadowed by fear. Stay inside, he ordered gently. I'll go out and meet them. I won't let them take you. Sarai opened her mouth to protest, but she closed it again. She didn't argue. She knew Cole was only trying to protect her. She also knew that there was no way to avoid this. She couldn't keep running forever. The ship landed just outside the outpost, kicking up dust as it settled on the ground. 3 alien soldiers stepped out, all of them tall, imposing figures. Their armor was dark and sleek, and their weapons looked deadly. Cole stepped forward, meeting them before they could reach the door. His pulse was racing, but he held his ground. I'm here for the fugitive Sarai, one of the soldiers said, his voice cold and commanding. You will hand her over immediately. Cole's jaw tightened. She's not going anywhere. The soldier's eyes narrowed. You're a human. You don't understand the consequences of harboring a traitor. I don't care about your consequences, Cole replied, trying to keep his voice steady. She's under my protection now. You're not taking her. The other 2 soldiers raised their weapons, aiming them at Cole. But the first soldier held up a hand. This is not a negotiation, he said, his voice becoming more forceful. We don't ask for permission. We simply take. Cole's eyes flicked to Sarai, who was standing in the doorway now, watching the confrontation. Her face was pale, and she looked as if she might collapse at any moment. Please, she said, her voice barely audible. Don't make them fight you, Cole. The soldiers turned to look at her, and Cole could see the anger in their eyes. She's a traitor, one of the soldiers growled. She deserves to be punished for defying the council. No, Sarai said, stepping forward despite the fear in her voice. I'm not your prisoner anymore. I'm free. The soldiers hesitated, their eyes flicking between Cole and Sarai. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. We can do this the easy way, the lead soldier said, his hand resting on the weapon at his side. Or the hard way. The choice is yours. Cole knew there was no easy way out of this. His heart raced and his hands clenched into fists. He wasn't a fighter, but he wouldn't let them take Sarai. Not without a fight. We fight then, Cole said, his voice unwavering. The alien soldiers didn't move. They were waiting for Cole to make the first move, knowing they had the advantage. But Cole wasn't backing down. He wouldn't let her be taken, not while he was still standing. The lead soldier's eyes narrowed as he surveyed Cole and Sarai. The standoff between them was tense, filled with an unspoken understanding that things were about to escalate. Last chance, human, the soldier growled, his grip tightening around his weapon. Step aside. Cole stood firm, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't a fighter. He had no military training, and his outpost wasn't equipped for a confrontation of this scale. But none of that mattered, not anymore. I'm not stepping aside, Cole said, his voice steady but loud enough to carry across the dusty ground. You're not taking her. Sarai, standing behind him, stepped forward, her heart racing in her chest. She hadn't seen the soldiers up close before, but she knew all too well the threat they posed. The fear in her eyes was still there, but something else had grown stronger inside her. She was tired of being hunted, tired of being treated like she didn't matter. She wasn't going to let them control her anymore. You'll have to kill me first, Cole added, his jaw tight. And even then, you won't get her. The soldiers glanced at each other, uncertainty flashing in their eyes. They weren't used to humans standing their ground so stubbornly. Most humans would have given in, but Cole was different. He wouldn't let fear rule him. The soldier who had spoken first, the one leading the group, let out a sharp breath. So, be it, he said coldly. You've chosen your fate. In a flash, the soldiers raised their weapons, the cold hum of energy charging through the air. Cole braced himself, preparing to do whatever it took. But before the soldiers could fire, a loud voice interrupted them. Hold your fire! A figure stepped out from behind the soldiers, wearing a black uniform with a silver insignia on the chest. This figure was different. His presence commanded attention. He was taller than the others, and his eyes gleamed with intelligence. Captain Arvan, the lead soldier said, his voice respectful but with a hint of confusion. We've found her. She's here with the human. Captain Arvan's eyes moved to Cole, then to Sarai, who stood just behind him. For a moment, there was silence. Then he spoke. I don't care about the human, he said, his voice deep and authoritative. I care about you, Sarai. Sarai stiffened. She didn't know this man. She had never seen him before, but there was something in his gaze that unsettled her. He wasn't like the others. There was a certain calmness in his demeanor, as if he already knew everything. You know who I am? She asked, her voice trembling. Yes, Captain Arvan replied. I know exactly who you are. You've been a thorn in the side of the council for far too long. Then you know why I ran, Sarai said, standing taller now. I refused to be used as a pawn in their game. I wanted to live my own life. Running only makes things harder for you, Captain Arvan said, his expression unreadable. But I'm not here to take you back to face the council. Not yet, anyway. Cole didn't trust the captain's words. He had heard enough from the soldiers to know that Sarai's people had no mercy for those who defied them. The threat was still very much alive. What are you talking about? Cole demanded. What do you want with her? Captain Arvan turned his gaze back to Cole, his eyes cold and calculating. I want to offer her a choice, he said. A way out of this mess. The council doesn't know everything. There are other forces at work. Other forces? Sarai echoed. What do you mean? I'll explain everything, Captain Arvan said, his tone softening. But first, we need to get you out of here. They'll be sending more soldiers. If we stay, we'll be trapped. Sarai glanced at Cole, who looked just as confused as she felt. Where would we go? She asked. I have nowhere left to run. Captain Arvan's lips curled into a slight smile. There are places far beyond the reach of your people, Sarai. Places where the council can't touch you. Places where you can find peace, but it'll cost you. A price you might not be ready to pay. Cole's eyes narrowed. I'm not leaving her side, he said firmly. Wherever she goes, I go. Sarai turned to him, surprise crossing her features. Cole, you don't have to. I'm not going to let them take you, Sarai, Cole said, his voice low but determined. Not again. Captain Arvin studied them both for a moment before nodding. Very well, you both come with me, but understand this. If you stay, there will be no turning back. Your lives will change forever. You will be hunted forever. But if you're willing to risk it, I can offer you a new path. Sarai hesitated, her mind swirling with doubt. The choice was so much bigger than anything she had ever imagined. Could she trust this stranger? This captain? Could she trust Cole to follow her into the unknown? But deep inside her there was something stirring, something that had been buried under layers of fear and pain. It was hope. Hope for a future where she wasn't defined by her past. Hope for a future where she could be free. I'm ready, she said, her voice steady. I'll take the chance. Captain Arvin's eyes softened just for a moment. Then we leave now, before it's too late. The small outpost was silent as the three of them stood facing Captain Arvin, a sense of uncertainty hanging in the air. Sarai's heart was still racing from the unexpected turn of events. She had never imagined that her life would be altered by a man she had never met, someone who claimed to offer her a way out, a chance at a new life. But could she trust him? We need to move quickly, Captain Arvin said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm and firm, as though he had dealt with situations like this many times before. Your people will be looking for you. The longer we stay here, the more dangerous it becomes. Sarai nodded, her mind still spinning. Where are we going? She asked, looking from Captain Arvin to Cole. She had no idea where to turn now. The world she once knew felt far away, almost like a dream. Away from here, Captain Arvin replied simply. I have a ship. It's not much, but it will get us where we need to go. Cole gave Sarai a reassuring glance. He still didn't trust Captain Arvin, but he wasn't about to leave her alone. Let's go then, he said, his voice determined. The three of them moved quickly, heading toward the back of the outpost where Captain Arvin had parked his small ship. As they walked, Sarai couldn't help but glance nervously over her shoulder. Every shadow, every sound, felt like a warning. She was being hunted, and no matter how much she wanted to believe in this new chance, part of her was terrified that it would all come crashing down. The ship was smaller than Cole had expected, but it looked well maintained. Its sleek surface reflected the dim light of the desert sun as they approached. Captain Arvin led the way, and the two of them followed, stepping up the small ramp and into the ship's entryway. Inside, the ship was simple but functional, control panels lined. The walls and the faint hum of the engines filled the space. A small kitchen area sat off to the side, and there were seats for the crew, though the interior felt cramped. Captain Arvin quickly took the pilot's seat and gestured for Cole and Sarai to sit. Strap in, he said, his tone serious. We're about to leave the planet. Sarai hesitated for a moment, then took a seat next to Cole. She buckled herself in, her fingers trembling slightly. She could feel her heart racing again, but this time, there was a new sense of anticipation. For the first time in a long while, she was doing something for herself. She wasn't running anymore. She was choosing to fight for her freedom. As the ship lifted off, Cole looked out the small window. The ground below quickly faded into the distance, and the vastness of space stretched out before them. It was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. How far are we going? Sarai asked, her voice breaking the silence. Far, Captain Arvin replied, his eyes focused on the controls. There's a place where you can be safe, but we need to get there without being followed. Sarai's mind raced with questions. Who were these people Captain Arvin spoke of? Where was this place, and what kind of life would she have there? Could she really escape the past that had haunted her for so long? We'll be out of their reach soon enough, Captain Arvin added, his voice more reassuring now. The Council doesn't have the resources to track us once we're in deep space. Sarai glanced at Cole, who gave her a small, encouraging smile. He was by her side, and that gave her more comfort than she could explain. Despite the uncertainty of the journey ahead, she knew that whatever happened, they were in this together. Below, quiet before the storm, as the hours passed, the ship moved smoothly through space. The stars twinkled in the distance and the steady hum of the engines was oddly soothing. But even in the quiet, Sarai couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to her. She had been running for so long, and now, for the first time, she was faced with the possibility of finding a real home. But was it possible to truly escape her past? Cole, sitting beside her, seemed to sense her unease. He reached over and placed a hand on hers, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "We'll be all right," he said softly. "You're not alone." Sarai looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice catching in her throat. "I don't know how to repay you for all of this." "You don't have to repay me," Cole replied with a gentle smile. "Just live. That's all you have to do." The warmth in his voice brought a small tear to Sarai's eye. She had never known such kindness. Her entire life had been spent in fear and uncertainty, and now, for the first time, she felt like she might finally have a chance to breathe. As the ship traveled deeper into space, the vastness of the universe seemed to stretch on forever. The reality of what they were doing hit her again. She was leaving everything behind, her people, her home, and everything she had known. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid. Captain Arvan's voice broke through her thoughts. "We'll be reaching the outer edge of the system soon. Stay alert. There might be patrols out here." Sarai nodded, her heart racing. Again. Despite the brief moment of peace she had felt, the fear was never far away. She had to keep moving, keep running. The past wasn't just a memory. It was a shadow, always following her, always just behind her. The ship moved silently through the void, the stars outside a constant reminder of how far they had come, and how far they still had to go. The journey through space was long and quiet. The ship moved steadily through the void, leaving behind the planet that had once been Sarai's home. The stars outside were endless, and for the first time in a long time, Sarai felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Hope. She sat by the small window, her eyes focused on the stars. It had been a week since they left the outpost, and still, the ship hummed steadily as they flew farther away from everything she had known. The past, with all its pain, was behind her now, but the fear of what might come next still lingered. Beside her, Cole was working on one of the ship's control panels. His presence, calm and steady, was a source of comfort for her. He had stood by her when no one else had. He had given her a chance when it felt like there was none. Sarai turned her gaze to him. "Cole, do you ever wonder what's next for us?" she asked quietly. Cole glanced up from the panel, his eyes meeting hers. He paused for a moment before speaking. "I think about it sometimes," he said, his voice soft but filled with determination. "But right now, I'm just focused on keeping you safe. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together." Sarai felt a warmth in her chest. She had never had anyone say that to her before. Her life had been filled with people using her, controlling her, pushing her to do things for their benefit. But with Cole, everything felt different. He wasn't trying to control her. He wasn't trying to use her. He was simply there, offering his support, his trust, and his companionship. She didn't know if she could ever repay him for everything he had done. But she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't alone anymore. For the first time, she had someone by her side who cared about her, not because of what she could give him, but because he simply cared. Sarai smiled softly, a small tear escaping her eye. "Thank you, Cole," she whispered. "You've done more for me than anyone ever has." Cole didn't say anything at first. Instead, he reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. His touch was kind and gentle, and it sent a warm feeling through Sarai's chest. She had never experienced such tenderness before. "We've got each other," he said simply. "And that's all we need, the unseen threat." Though the ship was far from the planet, Sarai's mind couldn't quiet the fear that still gnawed at her. She had escaped her people, but could she really escape the life they had condemned her to? The thought of being hunted, forever, always looking over her shoulder, always afraid, was something she couldn't shake. She looked out the window again, watching the stars flicker as the ship moved deeper into space. Even though they were far away, the threat was still there. Her past was still chasing her, and no matter how far they traveled, she knew it might catch up with them. The door to the cockpit slid open, and Captain Arvin stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room. "Everything's fine?" he asked, his voice calm but with an edge of concern. "We're fine," Cole replied, giving a quick nod. "Just making sure everything is running smoothly." Captain Arvin's eyes lingered on Sarai for a moment, a faint expression of sympathy crossing his face. He knew what she was feeling. He had seen it too many times before, the fear of being hunted, the weight of the past that never let go. "We're approaching the rendezvous point," Captain Arvin said, his voice serious. "We need to stay alert. There are patrols out here, and the last thing we want is to get caught." Sarai's heart skipped a beat. The thought of being captured again made her stomach twist with dread. She had already escaped once, but the idea of being hunted down again was too much to bear. "What happens if we're caught?" she asked, her voice trembling despite herself. Captain Arvin met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "If they find a child, they won't stop until they have you. But we'll do everything we can to avoid that. We're almost to safety." Sarai's eyes flicked to Cole, who was looking at her with a reassuring expression. He didn't say anything, but his presence was enough. She could feel the strength of his support. They weren't just passengers on this journey. They were in it together. "Thanks, Captain," Cole said, breaking the silence. "We'll stay alert." Captain Arvin nodded and turned to leave the cockpit, his heavy footsteps echoing as he went. The Docker slid shut behind him, and for a moment there was nothing but the hum of the ship and the distant sound of the stars outside. A new path. The next few days passed without incident. The ship glided smoothly through space, and the vastness of the universe outside felt both awe-inspiring and terrifying. For Sarai, the quiet was almost peaceful. Almost. As the days went by, Sarai spent more time with Cole, helping him with small tasks on the ship and talking about everything and nothing. It was strange how easily they had fallen into a rhythm. There was something about Cole that made her feel at ease, even when the past seemed to be right behind them, ready to strike. One evening, as they sat together in the small dining area, Sarai looked at Cole, a question on her mind. "What about you, Cole? What will you do now?" Cole paused, looking thoughtful. "I don't know," he said after a moment. "Maybe I'll help with the ship. Maybe find a new place to settle down. But whatever happens, I'm not leaving you. We'll figure this out together." Sarai smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She was living, truly living by her own choices. And Cole, in his quiet strength and unwavering support, had made that possible. "Thank you," she whispered again, the words full of meaning. Cole met her gaze, his smile warm and sincere. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "We're in this together. Always." For the first time in a long time, Sarai felt something she hadn't known in years. Peace. It wasn't a peace without fear, but it was a peace born of trust, born of the promise of a future she could shape for herself. And with Cole by her side, she knew that whatever happened, she would never face it alone. The days blurred together as the ship traveled farther into deep space. Sarai had started to feel a new sense of freedom that she had never experienced before. Each passing moment without the shadow of her past hanging over her felt like a small victory. She had made it this far. She was no longer a fugitive, not in the way she had been before. Beside her, Cole continued to be a steady presence, always there with a reassuring word or a helping hand. The bond between them had grown stronger, and for the first time in a long while, Sarai felt like she wasn't alone. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living. As they neared their destination, Captain Arvin's calm voice came over the intercom. "We're almost there. Prepare yourselves." Sarai sat up straight, a small flicker of nervousness creeping into her chest. She had been running for so long, always afraid of what would happen if she stopped. Now, they were heading to a new world, a place where she could be safe, but the fear didn't fully fade away. What if they couldn't find a place to belong? What if they weren't welcome even here? "We'll be all right," Cole said, glancing over at her. He must have sensed her unease. "Where we're going, they won't care who you are or what you've done. They just care about who you are now." Sarai looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. His words had a warmth that soothed her fears. It had been so long since someone had spoken to her with such trust. In that moment, she believed him. The new world. The ship broke through the last layer of atmosphere, and Sarai gasped as they descended into the orbit of a beautiful planet. It was covered in green forests, rolling hills, and vast oceans that stretched as far as the eye could see. From space, it looked like a paradise. Peaceful, untouched, and alive. "This is it," Captain Arvin said, his voice filled with pride. "Welcome to your new home." Sarai stood up, moving to the observation window. Her eyes shone with awe. She had never seen anything like it. After everything she had been through, after the betrayal and exile, this felt like a dream. The fear that had always been there, lingering in the background, seemed to fade in the face of this new world. As the ship touched down on the soft, grassy land, Sarai felt a sense of finality settle over her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She was finally free. A new beginning. The ship landed in a small clearing surrounded by tall trees and the sound of distant wildlife. The air was fresh and clean, carrying the scent of flowers and earth. Sarai stepped off the ship, feeling the soft ground beneath her feet. She took a deep breath, letting the peace of the place wash over her. "This is it," Captain Arvin said, stepping out beside her. "This is where we start over." Sarai turned to him, her heart full of emotions she couldn't quite express. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." Captain Arvin gave her a small smile. "You're welcome. But this is just the beginning. You'll have to build your life here, and it won't always be easy. But you have a chance. A real chance." Cole stood beside her, his presence solid and comforting. "We'll make it work," he said simply. "Together." Sarai nodded, her eyes meeting his. They had been through so much, and now, here they were, on a new world, with a new beginning ahead of them. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew one thing. For the first time in her life, she had a future to look forward to. The first steps over the next few weeks, Sarai and Cole settled into their new home. Captain Arvin helped them connect with the local community, a peaceful group of settlers who welcomed them without question. The people here didn't care about Sarai's past. They didn't care who she had been. They only cared about who she was now. Sarai found work in one of the local farms, helping with the crops and learning how to grow the new kinds of food that thrived on the planet. It was hard work, but it felt good. For the first time, she felt like she was contributing to something. She was part of something bigger than herself. Cole, too, found a place for himself. He worked on repairing the ships that came in and out of the small settlement. He was good with his hands, and the locals quickly realized he had a talent for fixing almost anything. Sarai would sometimes watch him from a distance, admiring the way he worked. He was steady and focused, always taking his time to make sure everything was right. As the days passed, they both started to feel a sense of belonging they had never known before. The community welcomed them, and little by little Sarai realized she wasn't just running anymore, she was building a life, a real one. A new family one evening, as they sat outside their small cabin watching the sun dip below the horizon, Sarai turned to Cole. "I never thought it would be like this," she said softly. "I never thought I'd be able to settle down, to have something real." Cole smiled, his eyes warm. "You've earned it, Sarai. You've been through more than most people could handle, and you're still standing. That's something to be proud of." Sarai leaned back, looking up at the stars above. The night sky was clear and endless, and for the first time she felt at peace. Her past no longer defined her. Here she could be whoever she wanted to be. I don't think I ever really knew what it was like to be free, Sci-Fi said, her voice thoughtful, but I'm starting to understand it now. Cole nodded. Freedom isn't just about running away. It's about choosing your own path. And you've done that. Sci-Fi looked at him, her heart full of gratitude. Thank you, she whispered, her voice soft but filled with emotion. For everything. Cole smiled, reaching out to take her hand. We're in this together. Always. And for the first time in her life, Sci-Fi truly believed it.